Welcome in to the 48 Minutes podcast on Believe. I'm Ross Geiger, the former NBA video coordinator, and I'm joined alongside Bruce Bernstein, the four-time Emmy Award winner who spent more than 3 decades at ESPN producing NBA shows, SportsCenter, and soaking up knowledge from the best hoop analysts in the business. Also joining us is the 2-time Emmy Award winner, Michael Will-Be-Freer, who's a senior writer at StatFactor, specializing in writing advanced statistical NBA reports for various announcers across the league. This is episode number 255, the Isaiah Hartenstein episode, as Isaiah currently wears number 55 for the Thunder, which is the team he'll likely be on for the foreseeable future after agreeing to a new 3-year, $75 million deal this past weekend. Bruce and Worldby, this is just one of many news breaks we've received over the course of the past week, and many more here as of taping on Tuesday night. So let's see how many we can get to here tonight. It's going to be an action-packed show, and I feel like we got to start at the top here with LeBron James, who has notified the Los Angeles Lakers to move on without him because he is exploring his options elsewhere. This has come down to him wanting to be happy and prioritizing his happiness in his final year or so. And so, Bruce, I'll start with you. I've got my ideas where I think he's headed, but what was your reaction to today's news on King James?
Well, LeBron is LeGone, so I've been sitting on that one. I've been sitting on that one all day. Look, what's next? Golden State, Miami, Cleveland, somewhere else? I mean, to me, I could see Golden State really trying to get him for a bargain basement price, trying to maybe see if they can get one more deep run with now that they've re-signed Porzingis. You still have Steph. Draymond opted out, but he's supposedly going to opt back in. But LeBron knew that the Lakers couldn't win as currently constructed. So look, it's not like he's never changed teams before. And while I kind of doubt he's going to go back to Miami, there was so much bad blood between him and Rouse when he left. I could definitely see him going back to Cleveland.
Yeah, he could. And there was actually some video that came out from this past week and LeBron driving around in Ohio. So maybe a quick teaser for them. Worldie, what's your thoughts on this LeBron James news?
Well, the one thing I happened to come across when I was reading stories, somebody brought it up, somebody else brought it up. I found this really interesting. For all the teams he's played on and everything, this stretch was his longest continuous stretch with one team, the 8 seasons with LA. Yeah. You wouldn't think of that because he's so identifiable with Cleveland, with Miami for all those titles. But his time with the Lakers was his longest with one team, which is I found interesting. He brought them a championship. It was a success no matter how you want to look at it. I don't know. I still think of it more with Cleveland, and I really with Miami, it's kind of 50-50 there in terms of where he's identifiable with in terms of that in LA. As for where I think he's going to go, it seems like Cleveland would be an ideal spot to finish up one more time there. It doesn't sound like for the right team, it doesn't sound like they're going to have to break the bank if you listen to what you read, the mid-level exception or the veteran mid-level exception for $15 million, if they can put guys in place. I think he wants to win that title one more time. I think that's above whatever his highest salary may be. And in order to do that, he's going to have to take something like $15 million, that exception, in order for the team he wants to go to keep its pieces or add to it. Anywhere he goes, I mean, geez, if he ended up in Miami, that front line would be ridiculous with Bam and Giannis and LeBron. But really, anywhere he goes, the roster looks pretty strong. So for me, it seems like Cleveland is the best move for him. Or if you're looking to try and win a championship, it'd be back in the East where he probably in a wide open East can get on a roll, and he probably has a better chance to reach the finals.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at the Cleveland Cavaliers, it's definitely the best spot for LeBron if he doesn't want to have to play that much defense because they've got some great frontline players to help him out there, and Jared Allen and Evan Mobley to back them up on those failed closeouts for a 41-year-old to make on some of these younger wings in the NBA. But if you ask me, I think he's headed to Golden State. I think this is going to be one last hoorah with basically his Team USA guys. Of course, Steve Kerr being the head coach of Team USA during their gold medal runs. And then, of course, Steph Curry being a huge part of that, too. I think LeBron would love to play with the best shooter of all time. Draymond Green, who also happens to be a Rich Ball client, declined his, I think it was like $27 million final year of his player option. I'd have to expect that is to make some salary available for a guy like LeBron, who has come out and said, or his camp has at least said, this next deal is not going to be about money. He's willing to, play for a little less, because remember last time he asked for the max from the Lakers, when he wanted that extension. So I see him staying very close to home, home being Los Angeles, to where he resides right now. And, he can fly back and forth to be with his family on breaks or in between, games and whatnot. So going to be really interesting to see. That definitely added another layer to this, what has already been an exciting NBA off season. Now, next up, speaking of exciting, we've got Kawhi Leonard, who is on the move, and he will be returning to Toronto, where he became a legend, winning the Raptors their first ring in franchise history. This was a pretty big swing here by Toronto, though. They did acquire Kawhi Leonard, but they did give up 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, a pick swap, young sharpshooter Grady Dick, and, of course, the 1 or 2-time All-Star Brandon Ingram. Bruce, what was your thoughts into this deal?
I think Toronto seriously overpaid for 35-year-old future Hall of Famer, often injured, just had a great season. His trade value was never going to be higher than it is now, but he needed to go to a decent team with a chance to win. And, in Toronto, they found a team that considered themselves to be, that team. So, look, Lawrence Frank did good. Toronto is in win now mode, while the Clippers, they'll take Ingram, they'll take Grady Dick, all those draft assets you mentioned, because I've read a lot online today about how, what a great move for Toronto. This is great for Toronto. It's like, well, dude's 35 years old, okay? When he won the championship, that was 7 seasons ago. He was 28. Yeah. Big difference between 28 and 35, particularly when you've had all the injuries. So, look, Toronto's going to pray for Kawhi's good health. And it's great that he wants to finish his career in Toronto, because you don't really hear too many superstar players saying that. So it's good for the Raptors franchise. But I think that this is a big, big swing, and I could see it being a big, big miss.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you, Bruce. I think this is a huge return for Kawhi, for the Clippers. Not to mention, even off a spectacular year that Kawhi had last year playing for the Clippers. I mean, he was a superstar level talent last year, certainly an MVP candidate in my mind. But this is a guy that always has negative distractions, whether it be his health, obviously the whole aspiration thing before the start of last season. To be able to move on from that, get some draft capital as well as a younger player in a Grady Dick, shooting is a premium in this league, and a guy like Brandon Ingram that can help right now. I think this is a nice return package for them. And, given that this is Los Angeles and a big market, they can always take a swing in the future now with those picks to acquire another big star. Worldby, what was your thoughts into Kawhi? You've always been a huge fan, but are you a fan of this trade?
The first things first, I think we can closing the book on his tenure in Los Angeles. It was a massive failure of his time in the Clippers from the Clippers' perspective. I mean, 7 seasons, they made 1 trip to the conference finals and 3 playoff series wins all totaled. Now, you're right. He had arguably the best season of his career last season when he played in 65 games. We've been begging. He's been pretty good the last couple of years health-wise. He's had some good run playing back-to-backs now. And I think, the numbers from last season, 28 a game, shot over 50%, shot 39 from 3, had the steals almost 2 a game. I mentioned how many games he played. So he really had arguably his best season. I think I understand that was a lot to give up for him at his age. I think Toronto is going to get another one of Kawhi's best effort seasons in terms of health, in terms of production, simply because it sounds as if he wants one more sort of extension here, before he's done. And he's looking at another 2-year deal. He certainly wasn't going to get it from LA, which as you mentioned, couldn't wait to say sayonara to him and his deal. Whether no matter what they feel about him, it's just they weren't going to give him another extension. He's going to be a motivated guy, and I honestly think you pair him with a guy. You talked about LeBron James, how he's going to look to young guys for help on defense. Well, Kawhi Leonard is still a solid defender, not the way he was, but now he's got Scotty Barnes, who's another top-tier defensive player, and that's a formidable duo to play defense against, to play, go up against offensively for another team. I think this puts everybody's healthy with that lineup. I think this puts Toronto right in the mix near the top in the East in terms of contention. I think, as Bruce mentioned, they're in win-now mode, and they have players now that can do it. I think they put a good charge in the playoffs there, putting against Cleveland in the first round. So I think they have a shot to get even further. And in the East, it's wide open. It's going to be wacky, and why not Toronto at this point?
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting for the Clippers here on this big decision to let go of Kawhi Leonard. They made the right decision and the right call on Paul George. So let's see if they can go 2 for 2 here, letting go of Kawhi Leonard at the right time as well. Now, speaking of not getting rid of a player at the right time, Ja Morant and the Memphis Grizzlies. The Memphis Grizzlies finally trade Ja Morant. For all this time, we were wondering, Bruce, what's his trade value? What could you get for Ja Morant? Well, the answer is not that much, because no picks were involved in this trade. All that Memphis got in return was Jeremy Grant, who has an ugly contract himself, and a younger reserve player in Chris Murray. So what did you think of this overall deal, and how do you like the fit of Ja Morant in Portland?
Well, now they add to their collection of guards. You have Drew Holiday, you have Damian Lillard, you got Scoot Henderson, and now you have Ja. Drew and Dame are old. Each has 2 years left on their respective contracts. Scoot has 1 more year, but this deal really kind of signals to me that they may be ready to move on from Scoot Henderson, because he is their younger guy, and they're bringing in Ja, who is a younger guy, at least compared to the other guys. But look, it's a worthwhile gamble for Portland, I think. They have a new coach, Michael Nori, who's got a really bizarro contract where he has a 3-year deal, but only the first year's guaranteed. Well, if he finds a way to unlock Ja, he's either going to earn the rest of that extension, or perhaps even better, he may get a lucrative offer from another team if he does a good job with Ja. So this is a real great opportunity for Micah Nori to show that he's got like a special, skill as a coach. Now, as for Memphis, well, they've cleaned out the old school crew. I mean, they're all gone, Ja, Desmond Bane last year, Jaren Jackson Jr. last season, and they're ready to rebuild. So in their case, losing Ja is really kind of addition by subtraction, I believe.
Yeah. Yep. World B?
Yeah, I agree with Bruce about addition, but they clearly just wanted to wash their hands of the whole experiment with Jaren Jackson Jr. and Desmond and Ja Morant. They succeeded. And, with the other 2 guys, they mentioned they got a ton of draft capital coming in. So this one wasn't a huge disappointment to not receive any draft picks in return. They got plenty, and they, as you mentioned, the whole key was just getting Ja somewhere else. And they shipped him just about as far north as you could, I suppose, northwest up in Portland. That's pretty close. I have absolutely no idea where Portland's going on this. I really have no idea. This is a terrible shooting team last season, 28th in three-point percentage during the regular season. They were 15 out of 16 among the playoff teams in three-point percentage, and now you add one of the worst perimeter shooters in the league, and you're depending. Now they got rid of one in Chris Murray, who is also equally lousy, but he's not in Ja Morant's league when it comes to perimeter shooting. So, as Bruce mentioned, they could start 4 guards if they wanted now, quality guards. I just don't see what the plan is. And I texted you guys when this trade went down. This is like, having, doing this to their coach, who's a lame duck coach this year, is like sending a hunter out to feed, to the lion's den with a shotgun that shoots out the flag bang when he pulled the trigger. It's like nothing's going to happen here for him. I feel really bad. He's just put in a lousy spot, but he's well respected, Nori is. So everybody, every article you read, coaches are really happy for him that he's got a chance. So if he's worth anything, if he can pull off something like another playoff appearance for this team, maybe he gets a coach of the year in year one.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. I'll be the first to go on record here. I'm not a fan of a Ja-Dame backcourt. I don't see that being a very successful duo. In the process, obviously, I've always been the Scoot Henderson guy in this show. I thought at the end of last year, he showed a lot of development, especially second half of last season. Scoot Henderson looked like he was turning a corner. What happens with him? I know that we would take him down in Miami, and if that's the case, we might be changing the show name of 48 Minutes to Heat Talk Podcast, because Scoot and Giannis, I might lose my head. But in any case, I don't like the fan of that, but I do like the fact that the Memphis Grizzlies are deciding to move on from Ja Morant, and like you said, Bruce, it is a step forward for that franchise just to wipe their hands clean of Ja Morant and that saga. And we'll see what happens. Drew Holiday's a guy I got my eye on because I don't see how he fits in this rotation next year as well. And I think he has a lot to offer a veteran team that's contending for a title elsewhere. Now, moving on to your Charlotte Hornets, World B, they have been some busy bees out there since the last time we've circled back here on the podcast. And let's start out with the franchise face being shipped out of town. That is LaMelo Ball, who was packaged along with Josh Green, headed to Minnesota. And in return, the Charlotte Hornets got quite the haul. They got nuclear Naz Reid, a 2033 unprotected first-round pick, 3 first-round pick swaps, 2028, 2029, 2030, and 3 second-round picks. What was your thoughts of this news? It had to have caught you by surprise. And do you think Charlotte made the right decision to pull the trigger on this deal?
Yeah, you guys know I'm one of the few out there that is a LaMelo Ball fan, more than anybody else. But yeah, they clearly reaped the benefits from letting him go. Getting Naz Reid to come in really fortifies the front line. It really makes them a stronger. We were just talking about Naz Reid a week ago, how he was going to excel in Minnesota. Now that Randall's gone, so this is his opportunity. Well, now he has another opportunity to really be on a quality team, a team that is really setting themselves up to be a factor for the next 5-6 years now. They're massively under the cap space. They basically decide between this one and the Miles Bridges trade that followed. They got a little less athletic without those two there, who were probably the 2 best athletes and 2 of their best scorers. But they clearly weren't going to give Miles Bridges another contract, and they were certainly not going to give LaMelo Ball a 2-year, $120 million extension on his deal. They want to save up the money for when Brandon Miller's time comes up, and later, assuming he doesn't regress, when Con Knippel's time comes up, in a few years. So I think that's where they're looking to extend with the future. And the guys they have, the depth they had this season with a bunch of rookies who played, they had a really young, I think them and the Nets were 1 or 2, I can't remember which it was, in terms of most minutes by rookies, percentage of minutes played by the rookies. And look where Charlotte ended up in, one of the play-in spots, and lost to Orlando with a shot to go to the playoffs. So, yeah, it's all working out for Charlotte. I really think this is really working out for them. They're not going to change who they are in terms of the kind of team they are. They're still going to be 3-point happy. The one thing I will say, and in LaMelo's defense here, he did a really good job. First of all, Hornets offense was way better when he was, in terms of efficiency, better when he was on the court than off. The numbers just say that, no matter what you think about him. But now these guys are going to have to get their own shots themselves. They got to create their own threes. LaMelo Ball, for all his silliness that we talked about with his own shot selection, he did a good job of getting Con Knippel the ball where he needed it, getting Brandon Miller the ball where he needed it. These guys are going to have to do a lot of it on their own now, because Kobe White, who is coming back, signed with them, he's not exactly the same creator for others that LaMelo Ball is. That's the only issue from the Hornets end that I see.
Solid points, World B. Bruce, your thoughts on LaMelo?
considering how well the Hornets finished last season. I mean, they were a smoking hot team for like the last half of the season. So they could have been forgiven for thinking, we got a young team, we got all this momentum, let's run it back, maybe make a few little tweaks here and there with our bench. But they didn't do that. I mean, they're still doing work on their roster. Unloading LaMelo and Miles Bridges, they found willing takers in Minnesota and Phoenix. Because honestly, I don't think they minded trading either one of those guys. And what they got back are some old heads with playoff experience who can still play. Grayson Allen had a really good year for Phoenix last year. And Royce O'Neal is a dog. I mean, he still is. I mean, he's a guy that, you want in the foxhole with you. And I think when a guy like Royce O'Neal is practicing against a guy like Brandon Miller every day, that's going to help make Brandon Miller, I think, a better player, simply going up against a guy like that who's a very professional veteran guy. Nuclear Naz, he is going to be one of the beasts of the East. He's going to have a much bigger role than he ever had in Minnesota. He's going to show out. And I really kind of like the Kobe White Con Knipple backcourt. A UNC Duke backcourt combo, in North Carolina with Charlotte. I mean, they're gonna sell a lot of jerseys. And I think they're gonna get a lot of W's.
Yeah, Grayson Allen, a former Dookie as well, so he'll be back home and feeling good there as well. The only question I have here, and trust me, I'm not a LaMelo Ball fan, so I thought this was a huge deal for the Charlotte Hornets to get the package they did, selling high on LaMelo coming off his best season, especially as a leader for a team that obviously took a giant step forward last year. My only question to play devil's advocate with myself here is this going to be like De'Aaron Fox being traded from the Kings? I mean, last year's season for the Hornets was like the light the beam year when the Kings made the playoffs. And then they traded Fox, and then what happened after that? I mean, it was back to the cellar they went. So I think it's a little bit of a different situation being handled much better by the Charlotte Hornets front office that I have a little bit more faith in moving forward, but you never know. I didn't get your opinion on this one, but you had to have been pumped. No hurt feelings that Miles Bridges is moving on, is there?
No, again, on the court, I was a Miles Bridges fan. On the court, his athleticism was off the charts. And never forget the block he made at the end of the game against Miami in the play-in game to seal the victory that LaMelo gave him the game-winning basket, as it turned out. Now they're gone. So he absolutely regressed, though, as a shooter. His perimeter shooting about 30% or 31% last season. And they got guys that they're bringing in that are much better, and they really have a plan in place, I think. And like I said before, they weren't going to give these guys any more deals. They wanted to move on. So instead of letting them walk, as you mentioned, they got really good quality players back that they were going to be a player for, like I said before, for the next 5-6 years. This is not the Michael Jordan Hornets from a few years ago anymore. There are no signs of that anymore. Their front office is really seriously kicking butt right now, and optimism is going to be really high coming into the season. The one thing I will add, it's always easy when the expectations are low or nil. Let's see how they react to. They're going to have people talking about them like they talked about my Magic at the beginning of last season. Oh, they could go to the final. They could be top 4, and they had to go into play-in terms to get in the playoffs. Let's see how Charlotte reacts to these young guys to being a hunted team for a change.
Yeah, and on the flip side of that trade, Miles Bridges going to the Phoenix Suns. My only worry is this. I mean, Dylan Brooks coming in last year, being a chippy player, obviously having a demeanor about him, was exactly what this team needed. They needed toughness. They needed someone to be aggressive, really set the tone for the team, and you really saw his impact play a significant role on this team. And we saw some of the other guys on the team be rewarded for kind of following Dylan Brooks' lead. That is Colin Gillespie being a dog, and also Jordan Goodwin being a dog last year. Both those guys signed and got extensions well-deservedly by Phoenix. You bring in Bridges, it's another guy kind of with a shoddy character like a Dylan Brooks, and it's almost like a shot of like 100-proof rum. You put one into your Coke and mix it around, you're probably okay. You start putting 2 and 3 in there, you might not be okay after that. So be careful with the chemistry you're working with there, Matt Ishbia, because right now, I mean, you're playing with some fire, bringing all these guys in, and I truthfully thought at that point in time they might as well brought in Ja Morant too. This is a team that hasn't been successful with Devin Booker playing point guard. Why not take a chance on Ja Morant? If you're willing to take a risk on Miles Bridges, bring in Morant too while you're at it. I don't know. I think that should have been something they should have considered. But
Ja Morant didn't go to Michigan State like their owner, like Miles Bridges did with his owner.
You know, it's not too late to go back and get a Masters World B. I thought about that myself. I was like, if I want to get back in the league, I'll just go get my Masters from Michigan State and then move back to Phoenix and go, hey, Matt, I've worked in the league.
Well, your plan, you have a better plan, I think, than the Phoenix Suns do at the moment. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
Hey, Xavier Tillman's still out there too if he's looking for another former Spartan.
There we go. Yeah, Xavier Tillman still on the market. Moving forward, let's talk about some more teams that want to win next season, Bruce, and one of them being the Golden State Warriors, who have re-signed Kristaps Porzingis, 2 years, $40 million. Draymond Green, as we mentioned already, opted out of his contract to give their team a little bit more cap flexibility. And obviously there are some possibilities of pursuing LeBron and AD. What are your thoughts?
It's the quintessential win now organization. This is how they've been operating for quite some time now. I mean, last year it was Al Horford, you know. Who can blame him for making every effort to get every last bit out of Stephen Curry and try and keep him and the team in position to win big? I think, you know, Porzingis is going to be used very carefully in the regular season. They're going to try and preserve him for the playoffs. Jimmy Butler is still there. We'll see how he returns from his injury. He's still, you know, he still has some game if he's healthy. LeBron may now be a realistic option in there. And those Anthony Davis rumors, but the Wizards apparently have said they're not going to trade AD. So, look, if they should change their mind, and they did send AD to the Dubs, if you consider Al Horford, Draymond Green, LeBron, Porzingis, Curry, the MVP of the team just might be the medical and training staff, if that's the crew they put together.
Yeah, no doubt about that. World B?
Well, I think if all this actually came about, we'd have to drop the G from the team and just call them Olden State at this point. So,
Nice.
other than that, I agree with Bruce. There's a lot of possibilities for this. There's a lot of reasons to want to go all in with all these guys. But I think there's a lot of flaws in it, too. For starters, show me the last time a team won a championship just putting a bunch of guys like this together in one stretch. You have to go back a long time. If you look at all the teams that won the championship, including the team that won the championship in June, the New York Knicks.
Nice.
We need a bell on this show now when I mention that, because I told you last week every week from
one reference a show. Yep.
And then
what we need is a mute button every time you mention it.
Yeah. Sadly, you guys are going to find it real quick here in this summer, I fear. But it comes from getting quality players, growing with these players, and adding some pieces in. Now they're just trying to throw a whole bunch of people in there, and I just don't think AD, as Bruce mentioned, AD's I don't think is going to end up in Golden State. I think Washington invested too much to try and, they want to put their roster together and see how it turns out. I don't think they're going to accommodate Anthony Davis. I just don't think Draymond, I think, will come back on 2 years. LeBron, as you mentioned, Ross, he could go back there. That'd be a fun little trip there for, fun must-see TV thing.
Yeah.
But you don't know how many games you're going to get out of all these guys. Mm-hmm. And I really don't think this puts them any closer to a title than they were when the week began. So it'd be fun to sell tickets. I don't think it makes them a title contender. Not as long as San Antonio and Oklahoma City are in the mix. So, yeah, it's nice to talk about. It's just take it from my team, the Mets there in the baseball. The big names don't always putting it together. Doesn't always work out.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you there. I don't think getting older in the Western Conference gets you any closer to being better than the young Bucks that are already dominating the Western Conference, which is, of course, Oklahoma City and the San Antonio Spurs. You can already ask Denver Nuggets about that too, because they've found out when you get older, you can't really compete with those two.
Well, here's the thing, too, guys. As you mentioned, we're talking about, it's not as if these guys have a history of playing playing 80 games, playing 70 games. All of these guys, with the exception of perhaps Draymond, have injury history. You got to collect all these guys with an injury, even KP as an injury history. AD, if he would have come there, is legendary. And all these Steph Curry, LeBron. Now you're going to get all these guys there and really expect them all to be healthy for 65 games on the court. Not to mention, as Bruce mentioned, Jimmy Butler is, coming off ACL. We don't think he's going to start the season with the team because I think he tore it in January, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So figure him till at least Christmas to be on the court. And it's a nice thing. It'll be interesting. It'll grab headlines. It's just not going to win him a whole lot more games, I don't think.
All right, let's go ahead and get into some quick hitters here, Bruce, and let's get to the Heat moves and rumors because Andrew Wiggins has agreed to an extension with the team. He likes how he fits next to Bam and Giannis moving forward. And in addition to that here, recently we got the signings of Simone Fontecchio returning to the Miami Heat, who came over in a trade just last season. He was going to provide some shooting. And speaking of that shooting, Tim Hardaway Jr. returns home to the 305 and gets his opportunity to play for his hometown team and seems to be a good fit next to Giannis and Bam moving forward as well. What's your thoughts on everything going down in South Beach?
Well, also they picked up Bobby Portis, who's a good guy coming off the bench. Davion Mitchell's still there, good defensive guard. But Norman Powell is not, and he's probably not going to be either. They would really have needed to convince him to take a hometown discount. And at his age and considering the years he's had the past few years, he's not going to give Miami a hometown discount. He's as good as gone. So now Pat Riley and Andy Ellisberg are going to probably pursue some veterans like your buddy and Giannis's buddy, Chris Middleton. I could almost say that's a lock that they're going to probably bring him in. And perhaps even Michael Conley Jr., who's, very, very old, but is a steady guy, a veteran guy, and is a guy who would be a good culture guy. The Heat like 100%. To talk about their culture. Michael Conley is like the epitome of a culture guy. So is Chris Middleton, okay? So I think that's kind of where they're headed now that they got, kind of Hardaway Jr. kind of cancels out losing Norman Powell. Hardaway had a really good year last year. He averaged like 13 plus coming off the bench and 41% from downtown. Good production for him. And he's kind of an old guy who still plays kind of young. So I think he's actually a good pickup.
Yeah. Will be. Anything to add?
I agree with Bruce about Tim Hardaway Jr. I think he was over 40% first time in his career. That was a really good. I think he was third and sixth man voting too, I believe. So he really had a solid season. And his whole career is, if he's anywhere but in New York, he's going to excel with his shot. That's just, you look at his career. It started in New York. He struggled there. They somehow, some way brought him back after a few years, and he struggled again. So, but when he left, he goes anywhere he goes, he's been great. You'll need somebody in the postseason, though, because he does not have a track record of being successful shooting the long ball in the postseason. That could change this season, but he was a good pickup. I agree. Chris Middleton would be a great addition for them, a veteran person there to go with everything they have. So we'll see how that develops. But, things, this, as Bruce mentioned, this is what they're going to do because of the salary situation. They're going to piece things together and hopefully, like I mentioned with Golden State, hopefully not get saddled with the injury bug.
Yep. And moving on here, let's talk about the defending champion New York Knicks here, as they made some signings here as well. And Landry Shamet and Jose Alvarado earned new deals with the championship team. But Bruce, what about Mitchell Robinson?
Well, I mean, it doesn't look good for them keeping him because I think I read that the best they can really offer him at this point, now that they've signed Shamet and Alvarado, is like $8.7 million a year. That's less than half of what he would get from some other team. So he's not taking that. Okay. So losing him seems like, likely, unless they can somehow or another find a team for a sign and trade and get somebody back. And then, they can offer him the more money, then move that contract. But, you mentioned earlier in the show, Isaiah Hartenstein just signed an extension with OKC. He might have been a guy that they could have done a sign and trade with, but I don't think that's happening because he was already going to be making way more than what they could have afforded to pay Robinson. So, the Knicks, they'll find someone. They had a couple of young guys that came off the bench. Huck Porty, they played a little bit, in the postseason. They're still going to be there. But Leon Rose, who's done a magnificent job running that show, let's see what he can pull out of his hat to try and replace Robinson, because it looks like he will have to.
Yeah. Will B, your thoughts?
Well, it's the cost of business here. You're going to lose the salary cap. You got to let some people walk, and the thing is about Mitchell Robinson, he's going to get wherever he goes. When he comes back to New York, they're going to give him a standing O. He was the longest tenured Knick for at the moment. He still is. So he's seen the bad times and been there at obviously the highest moments. And he came up with one of the biggest plays in Knicks history. Well, I remember the offensive rebound in Game 5 to help keep off a missed free throw to help keep possession, and that isn't lost on New York fans. So that'll be tough to see him go, but re-signing Landry Shamet was a big deal, and I was really happy to see Jose Alvarado get his deal. He did so much when he came here. He's had a long road to get to this deal that he has now, and he really, being from New York, embraced being a part of this Knicks team, and depth was a big deal for the Knicks, obviously, in their championship run. They got 2 key pieces back. This next season shouldn't be the issue for them in terms of, are they going to have enough players? They should have their depth still, even without Robinson. The next year after that, or the year after that, at some point they're going to have to re-sign Jalen Brunson and re-sign Karl Anthony Towns, or they're going to be wanting their big deal. They took discounts already. I don't think they're going to be taking a hometown discount again to satisfy the front office. So they're going to have to do some maneuvering. We'll see what happens. This year, I'm not worried. 2 years from now, we'll see.
Yeah. And Bruce, moving on to the Western Conference champion Spurs. They look to be pursuing some depth here. They've already made a nice re-signing to Julian Champagnie, who certainly earned the contract after his stellar year shooting the basketball on the perimeter for San Antonio last season. Now the reports are out. Tobias Harris, Mamu, Hachimura, John Collins, Dean Wade seem to be in the mix, as well as potential guys they might add.
Yeah, I mean, look, Champagnie, was their most reliable three-point shooter. Okay, he's only 25 years old, so I mean, he's still what I would call a young player, and that's a very team-friendly contract, $15 million a year for 3 years. That's good. Yeah. Good job by them. And as you mentioned, they're looking at a variety of possible acquisitions to shore up that young core of Wemby, Castle, Harper, and Vassell. Now, Harrison Barnes is a free agent. I don't think he's coming back. He really
signed him already.
Oh, did they bring him back?
Yeah, 1 year, $8 million. Yeah, he's back.
All right. So they really don't need a whole lot then, really, if they're gonna give him a role. So, if it's Rui, if it's Tobias, John Collins is a Texas native. I think, he grew up in Dallas. He'd probably, like being on that team. And, we'll see what happens. The Spurs are a team that when you come to them, you change for the better. Whatever you were before, when you come to the Spurs, it's like this halo goes over your head because you learn to play like a Spur. And that makes a good player very good.
Yep. We'll be you've got about 30 seconds here to tell me your thoughts on the Spurs.
Champagnie I was really happy for him because he, just like Alvarado, just like Shamet, he really earned it. He had to go through a lot to get this deal. As Bruce mentioned, solid outside shooter. I think he's only going to grow more. He's going to be more reliable. His role's going to expand. So that was a good deal. They'll fill in the pieces otherwise, but having all those other guys back, those young guys, bar an injury, you expect them to be battling at the top again this year. Next season.
No doubt about it. And that's all we have time for on this edition of the 48 Minutes podcast on the big trades and free agent signings. We'll have much more for you next week. So that will do it for this edition of the 48 Minutes podcast. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back with you next week. Be sure you're up to date in 48 on all things around the association. Take care, everybody.